close till I get up. Time is barely on our side. I don't wanna waste what's left. The storms we chase are leading us, and love is all we'll ever trust. Yeah, no, I don't wanna waste what's left. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, till my shadow turns to sun rays. And on we'll go, through the wastelands, through the highways, and on we'll go.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are in this lovely little world. I hope you're well, hope you're fine, and it's great to be back online with you. Tonight, we're going to be having a bit of a chin-chag. We're going to be having we've got Barry Neale on with us. It's always great to have Barry on with us and have a good old laugh and a joke and sit there and rant, laugh and cry about what happened this week in hypnotic world and all of that type of stuff. So it's great to have you back on, mate.
Good to see you.
And for those people who don't know Barry's not only a friend and a colleague, but a drinking partner. But he's never bought a drink, so it doesn't matter. So the thing is that,
that's why I'm a good hypnotist.
yeah, that's fine. Yeah, that's fine. But the key thing about it is, folks, is if you've got any questions tonight, we're here. We're going to be sitting there talking away for the next hour about hypnosis, coaching, business, NLP, whatever you want to throw at us. We're going to give you what we think. Barry's been in the game. I'm going to let Barry just mention what he's done in his career, but on the same token, you can ask us anything. So I'm just going to hand you over to Barry while he just tells you who he is, what he does, and all those type of beautiful things.
Yeah. So if I haven't met you yet, or you haven't not heard of me, I've been studying hypnosis for now 48 years. Been an NLP trainer for 28, 29 years. Hypnosis trainer for the same sort of time. And unlike a lot of NLP trainers, particularly, I've run a full-time practice all that period of time as well, and I still see clients today. Unfortunately, there's a lot of NLP trainers out there who just do trainings, who've never had a practice, and many of them not seeing real clients other than demo subjects. So I've got tons of experience in knowing what in NLP works and what doesn't, which is surprising quite a bit.
Actually, what we're on that subject, do you think NLP is the new counselling?
Ooh, in how specifically? He says, using his best meta model question.
Because counselling was designed many years ago. I mean, we just had a discussion previously before we came on about Sigmund Freud. Sigmund Freud. And obviously he did some stuff at the time and it worked and all that type of stuff. And I don't know whether it helped people, but on the same token, we have counselling and all of that. But do you think counselling, it still has a place? I know it still has a place in today's modern world, but is NLP just that stage further in coaching and listening and all of that? Or do you think they're two separate entities?
I would hope that there were two separate entities, but I wouldn't like to say for sure. Unfortunately, NLP has changed dramatically since I first was introduced to it. And what people now learn tends to be just a bunch of techniques that they just intersperse into counseling or into hypnosis. And NLP is far more than that. It's really the methodology that's behind it. And what I find so frustrating is so many people throw techniques at problems with absolutely zero understanding as to what they're doing, and why the techniques work when they work. And unfortunately, because of the sort of 5-day, 7-day NLP trainings, where they used to be 30 days and even some year-long trainings, people would really spend loads of time understanding what was going on. Now they're just throwing a bunch of techniques together, and people think they're doing NLP. And then you often hear on Facebook, "I tried NLP, but that didn't work." It's like,
I know. I'm gonna come along in a minute and do all the hellos. I just wanted to breach that one because that was just something bubbling on the end of my tongue for some reason. Crypto Big Toe, what a nice channel, buddy. Isn't NLP about modeling at its core?
Yeah, sure. But you got to understand what they're modeling. The core of NLP is the meta model, If you ask Richard Bandler, he will tell you that the heart of everything he does is the meta model. But you also need to understand the whole deletion, distortion, and generalization process that goes on, which creates internal representations. And what we're really trying to do as therapists is change these internal representations. That's how therapy works. You change the internal representations.
Yeah.
Basically, and you can complicate it a lot,
Yeah.
or you can just get people to think of things differently.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, it's like I always say, it's perceptions. We're dealing with perceptions.
Yeah. And so, you know, you can dress it up, but basically you're getting people to think differently.
Yep.
And change the negative memories, like change them in some way.
Yeah.
So, but you've got to understand what you're doing and why you're doing. And particularly when you come into these techniques, because a lot of those techniques only work with specific things. They don't work with other things.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, people think, oh, that technique works for X. That must mean it will work for that. And no.
Well, there you go. I hope that answers your question. I've just got to quickly rattle through these. Good morning, Colette. Hope you're well. Hope you're fine. We'll be going back to Mondays as of next week. I've just had a couple of things going on in the office. They've had to do it on a Monday, so we are going back. Lynn, hope you're well over in the Middle East. Eric over in Saskatchewan. Hope you're well. Hope you're fine. Oh, you're in Alberta. Oh, you've just gone over the daylight times, haven't you?
Yeah.
I don't
For
like
the most part, yeah.
I don't like Barry Neale.
You know, what part?
Yeah. Hi, Chrissy. Hope you're well. Hope you're fine. Lynn's over in the back there. Mr. David McHugh. Hope you're well. Hope you're fine. David, just a quick one, buddy. I am letting yours trickle feed through on Hypnotic Masterminds because you give me an enormous amount of product, really, for Hypnotic Masterminds, our group. So what I do is I'm straddling them so they're not all being bombarded at the same time. So you get the bits and bobs that you need. All right, buddy. All right, ladies and gents. Lady Monkeys. There we go. Tuning in from South London. Good old there. Hope you're not a Millwall fan because I'm a Norwich fan. Anyway, that's me. There we go. We don't need that. So there we go there. RPA. Eric, hope you're well. Hope you're fine in Portugal. Hope you're fine. Hope you're well. Sharon, I hope you're well. Hope you're fine. I know you're enjoying the channel. I see you putting comments. Don't forget, folks, there's about 500 videos on here. So you can go around, plod along and do what you need to. Don't forget, some of these people have got green next to their name, like Sharon just here. Sharon's got green next to her name. That means that she's a member of the site. If you want to join the members site and you want to get all of the videos that are hidden from public eye, I run a business, right? Of course, I'm going to put things behind the scene. $4.99 for the month. And there's loads of videos behind the scene for you to go watch. Go back to your YouTube channel, click join, and then join which subscription you want to join, all right? There we go there. How about the new code from John Grid? Oh, wait a minute. We'll come back to that in a moment. Claire, I hope you're well. Hope you're fine, sweetheart. Mike, hope you're well, big boy. David's there. Crypto, I've done him. Lynn back there. Dave McHugh. Sorry for my ADHD. There we go there. So let me just right. So we've done the LOs. If he's still coming back, let me know. Any views on Steve Andreas, who is the early developer of NLP? I think you know him.
Yeah, great therapist, great NLP trainer. Should get far more credit than he got. Without a shadow of a doubt, if it had not been for Steve and Connie Ray Andreas, NLP would not be where it is today. No question about it. Yeah. They edited all the early books on it. Well, apart from Structured Magic and Structured Magic Patterns, all using your brain for a change, Heart of the Mind. They edited all those books of Bandler's. And they put on a lot of seminars for Bandler in the late 70s, 80s. And unfortunately, when Bandler went a little bit angry with everybody in the late 90s, he should never, Steve got some stick there, which he never should have done because he did more to publicize NLP than most.
For those people that are joining, by the way, who don't know, neuro-linguistic program and NLP, right? So if you are joining this, mate, and I'm just going to say this now, make sure you get yourself a competent trainer. And I always like saying, going to people that, go to Bandler, go to Grindler, all of those type of things there. But that brings me back to what was just said here. How about the new code with John Grinder? Now, I can't really comment on this because I have to say I've not bothered my backside with it.
Yeah. John Grinder, great trainer, without a shadow of a doubt. Very, very clever man. I'm not sure that there's a huge much more about new code. I refer, again, strangely enough, to Steve Andreas, who looked at new code and said, well, it really is just another version of anchoring. So when they're doing like these NLP games, long story short, one of the NLP games is you have a load of letters up on the wall, the alphabet, and then numbers up on it. And then you're supposed to lift one hand, lift the other hand, stand on one leg. Basically, you have the person associate to the problem, then do this for 10 minutes till they get into a flow state, and then go back into the problem context. Well, that's a collapse anchors.
Yep.
It really is. You just get a person into another state, taking them back into the problem state. So John Grinder's a very, very clever man, without a shadow of a doubt. Had it not been for John, we wouldn't be talking here about NLP.
But it's like EMDR as well, isn't it? And most people think that, well, from what I've read that John Grindler wrote, is that most people think that Francine Shapiro came up with EMDR. But actually, it was John Grindler that spoke to him. She was an understudy of John Grindler. And, you know, and then she toddled off and then came up with some, and God bless her, I know she's passed on now, so it's not fair to do that. But on the same token, that Laxy Daisy story about watching trees and fucking squirrels jumping backwards and forwards, you know, all of that type of bullshit. So, you know, Grindler, you know, has got an enormous amount to there's no question that Grinder definitely Francine Shapiro, the creator of EMDR, worked for John Grinder. She had a client who'd been raped and had traumatic memories, and she went to John Grinder and said, what do I do? She's got these traumatic memories that are stuck in her head. Grinder says, try bilateral stimulation. Because I don't know if you know, in the early days of NLP, before they came up with the phobia cure, how they treated phobias was with the ball. So a lot of people say, oh, this person came up with the ball technique and that person came up with the ball technique. No, it was used in the early days of NLP. And so this woman, Francine Shapiro, came to John and said, how do I work? And he said, okay, just have a think of the memory and move the memory from side to side using bilateral stimulation. She did it, and of course it worked. And as a result, she started creating EMDR. Now, all credit to her, she really publicized that one technique. The downside of it is it became, again, due to the tests and whatever that have to be done to formalize something, it became very streamlined. And now it's nowhere near as effective as it could be. And that's one of the things I do when I teach eye movement integration, which is a variation of it, which was created by Steve and Connie Ray Andreas, which to me is much more effective. Well, so I think what happened with EMDR with the bilateral stimulation, the same as when we're doing it in, you know, with the I've just turned it into a metaphor with the I move it technique. That's just it. We're gonna do it that way. But on the same token, bilateral stimulation is one of the most underused things that I think that most people don't integrate into their sessions, and it's a great tool as well, a very simple tool to give your clients, you know, some homework, you know, for those people who don't know what we're talking about, because we are talking jargon. So if anyone joins us who don't know, this is simply bilateral stimulation. It's a pack of cards. Long story short is that I hold it like that, but I don't move my head and bring them out like that. So what I'm going to do is watch the pack of cards with my eyes and then move my eyes, not my head. And then the way that I only do it is just by get them to repeat it, a very simplistic format. I know there's other things as well out there. There's other people who've got other ideas and other techniques. They're all roughly the same anyway. But the key thing about it is that even if they're doing this and a client is literally just going, the anger is gone, the anger is gone, the anger is gone, the anger is gone, the anger is gone. What I look for is a transderivational search, which is bump when the eyes bounce around, or they get that numbness in their voice. They're going, the anger is gone, the anger is gone, the anger is gone. Now, there's a lot more to this. However, for those people that are watching in and haven't got a bloody clue what we're talking about, that's a very simplistic format. You can give that to your clients all day long.
Yeah, and I do this, and particularly 3 years ago when COVID first hit, I was completely shut down because I was only seeing clients one-to-one, and so we couldn't see clients one-to-one. And at that point, I was living in the country. My internet was rubbish, so I couldn't do Zoom sessions. So I'd have people phone me up and say, help, I've got anxiety, I'm having panic attacks, can you help me? And I say, well, I can't see you as clients, but what I've got is a video on my YouTube channel of the bilateral stimulation. Go and practice that every day for 10 minutes a day. Give me a call at the end of the month. Let me know what's happening. And the people who practice it after 30 days of just doing that one technique were no longer having panic attacks. Just that one technique, because it's really, it's such a simple thing. But from an anxiety point of view, anxiety is primarily a left hemisphere issue. They're talking to themselves at 1,000,000 miles an hour. So above the ear here, you've got Broca's area, which is the language center. They're talking to themselves 1,000,000 miles an hour. And when people have anxiety disorders, when they put them through MRI scanners, the left hemisphere is lit up like a Christmas tree, and not much is going on in the right hemisphere. By using the bilateral stimulation, passing the ball from one hand to another, what you're doing is your hands have got huge amounts of neural connections in. They take up a lot of the proprioceptive areas in the brain. So when you start moving them around in a coordinated way, it starts activating the right hemisphere. Now, what you can do to stack the deck, so I'll have the person come into my office, and if they're anxious, I'll say, on a scale of 0 to 10, how anxious are you? And they go 10. I go, great, have a ball. And we stand there and do this for a few minutes, and I explain to them what it is. As I'm a hypnotist, I throw in suggestions whilst I'm doing that. Now, as you pass the ball from hand to hand, notice your body beginning to relax. So I'm going to throw in some suggestions. We do that for a couple of minutes, and I go, okay, so where are you now? And they might go, like, I'm a 6. Oh, great. Now what I'm going to do is to add in some more right hemisphere stuff. So I'll get them to say, okay, so what I want you to do, as you pass the ball from hand to hand, I want you to hum a tune. Music, right hemisphere, hum a tune. So now they're humming a tune. Do that for a couple of seconds. Okay, great. Now that tune has got a rhythm, hasn't it? Yeah. Okay. I want you to transfer your body weight from one leg to the other, kind of like a dance. I don't expect you to be simply come dancing. It's just moving your legs from side to side. Right hemisphere, coordination. So now I'm getting them to add more to it. And pretty soon their anxiety is 0. So it's such a powerful technique, and you give that to them and say, right, I want you to do that every day, 10 minutes a day. Bring the anxiety up, bring it down. You have to bring it up first.
Yeah.
Same with KS, you've got to alert the state. If they're in a good, happy mood and they start passing the ball about, nothing's going to happen.
Yeah.
They have to alert the state, bring it up, bring it down, bring it up, bring it down. So basically you're telling the brain, not this, this, not this, this. And the brain gets it.
Yeah.
So it's such a powerful technique.
And just bringing that up about alerting the state and just making sure that you bring the issue up to the surface, whatever technique you're using. That is one of the key fundamental reasons why most therapists have failures in their sessions, because they're not activating, they're not bringing it up to the surface, and they're not dealing with the thing. And I'm going to briefly say this, is that's why we bang on about scripts, because it's not bringing it to the surface. So a script presupposes that the issue that the client thinks that it is, or you think it is the thing that you're writing this thing out for, and hoping that you're dealing with it. And while you're doing with it, you're hoping that something happens in that session to do it. And I don't think that you should be basing your career on hope. I don't think you should be basing somebody's hard-earned cash and beliefs on hope. And that's what Barry's just explained. You're not bringing up to the surface, and that's why scripts are a fucking cancer. That's what they are. And the sooner that people realize that and they stop going to trainers that do that, that's why Barry's just explained it like that. Anyway, off the script.
You've got to alert the state. If you don't do that, it's a bit like and you see this so often. You get people go to something like Tony Robbins. They'll go to a Tony Robbins 4-day workshop or whatever, and they'll be bounding up and down going, yay, 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 Tony. And they'll be in a peak state for 4 days, and they feel fucking on top of the world.
Yeah.
A week later, they're back at their job still feeling like shit.
Yeah.
Why? Because that peak state was never attached to anything.
Yeah.
Like, got to get the stuff up first.
Yeah, you got to bring it up, and that's one of the big key things that people just do not bloody well do.
And although I'm not a big fan of associated age regression, at least that does that first.
Yeah,
it brings it up and then goes back on it. So at least they got that bit right.
because that's quite interesting, isn't it? The conversation that's been rattling around this week that I triggered off another little shitstorm about regression and about does regression cause more damage, basically. And I don't know what's your thoughts out there. Do you use regression? Do you like regression? Do you not use it? One of those things. There's only one element of my work that I really do work with regression, and that's when I do that inner child work stuff, really. But I mean, to be quite honest, that's just an association of a good state. That's all I'm looking for. But I don't do any of the past. To be quite honest, I don't really like doing past life regression. They're not my thing, and I tell people that that's not my thing. It's not my bag. And the other thing as well is that as for regression, if you want to learn it, go see Roy Hunter, who's got all of Tibet's work, initial work. Roy Hunter. But yeah,
I just look at. I put my NLP hat on and look at normal age regression as taught by people like Gil Boyne and Jerry Kine. And I put my NLP hat on and go, okay, what is really happening there? Well, they're associating them to the problem. Right? Call the problem up. Then they take them back to the early childhood experience. But so they find then this supposed root cause, but then they bring them back to the present day. What have they done there? They've dissociated them.
Yeah.
Then what they do is they say, okay, now we're going to have a little talk with little Johnny. And this time you're going to tell him everything he needs to know so that he goes through that situation that it doesn't bother him at all. Because you know many things now that little Johnny didn't know back then. And if you know those things, you wouldn't have gone through that situation like that. Great. What's that? That's associating them to resources.
Yeah.
All right. So now little Johnny's got that learning. Now we're going to run that memory again. And this time it's going to be different because little Johnny knows all these things he's going to survive. What's that? Associating the resources to the problem state. It's the meta pattern.
Yep.
And so people get all think, oh, unless you find the root cause, you're never going to do it. But here's the thing. This whole concept of root cause has to be bollocks. It has to be. Because what is the real root cause? And let me give you a metaphor on this, because so it's really interesting to understand. Because when you get it from this perspective, you see what a load of nonsense it is. So Abraham Lincoln, history lesson. Abraham Lincoln was shot in the Ford Theatre whilst watching a play. Right? So what was the root cause of his death? So was it the political system that was going on at the time? Was it the fact that he just signed over and freed the slaves? Was it John Wilkes Booth and his political alliances that motivated him to shoot him? Was it the fact that Lincoln's wife wanted to go to see the play? Was the cause of it? Well, hang on a minute. John Wilkes Booth shot Lincoln with a Derringer pistol. Derringer pistols were invented by John Derringer about 50 years before. Was John Derringer the cause of Lincoln's death? Now, hang on a minute. Guns require gunpowder. Who invented gunpowder? The Chinese about 1,000 years ago. So there you go. The Chinese murdered President Lincoln. It's like, how far do you keep going back to find the cause of it? Because if the Chinese hadn't invented gunpowder, Lincoln wouldn't have been shot dead.
You do realise that you're probably going to have a drone above your head tonight, don't you?
Yeah. Chinese murdered the president. Oh, no.
There we go. There we go. There's an algorithm just picked that up and it'll be like that. The CIA are currently monitoring.
See a red dot on my forehead at the minute.
There you go. But that's it, folks. That's it. It's down to a nutshell. Anyway, so here we go.
How far do you keep going on there?
Yeah, I know.
Response to loud noise is something we're born with. Can you explain how you assist a client who had a bad experience with people banging loudly on the front door? Yeah, collapse the anchor on it. They're not habituating to it. They're seeing that as a threat.
So hang on a minute. I just saw this. I'm trying to stream through things as we go. Can you explain a bit more on collapsing anchors?
Sure. Okay. Virtually every problem that's going to walk into your office is going to be the result of a negative anchor. And by that I mean it's a stimulus response event. So, person sees dog, feels bad. Person looks at their boss, feels intimidated. Person feels lonely, turns to alcohol. So virtually every problem is a stimulus response problem. And that can be either something they're seeing, either externally or internally, something they're hearing, either externally or internally, or something they're feeling, like a tactile sensation, that sort of thing. It could be sense of smell or taste, but typically it's one of the first three. So a problem is always as a result of a negative anchor in like 99% of the cases. So the simple solution is, so basically what's happening then, in a specific context, something happens that triggers them to feel bad, and then they behave in a certain way. So that's a negative anchor. So the solution is to find a more positive state, a more resourceful state, and associate them into that, and create what's called an anchor, so it's a pairing of it. So you get them in a strong emotional state. If you're in the room with them, touch them on the back of the hand, on the shoulder, something like that. Those two things become linked together, again, like a stimulus response. So a quick example of a stimulus response conditioned in thing would be if you've ever been driving along in your car, minding your own business, and suddenly you see a blue flashing light in your rearview mirror. Suddenly that makes you feel a certain way. Even if you know you've been doing nothing wrong, seeing a blue flashing light makes you feel bad, apart from Karl, who probably... But for us normal people...
I used to stick blue lights on just for shits and giggles.
Yeah. But for us normal people, you see a blue flashing light in the rearview mirror, it makes you feel bad. Even if you've done nothing wrong, that's a negative anchor. So what we're doing is pairing two things together. So the touch or the sound with the strong state. We then have them think about the negative state and fire off the positive state. And really, this is the heart of all change work. You're getting them to be more resourceful. You're finding out where the problem is, what's the trigger. Okay, got that. Okay, how do you like to feel instead? Well, I'd like to be really, really confident. Great. What's it like when you're feeling really confident? Get them into that confident state and now have them think of the negative trigger. Those two things then link together, and that's how you create change. So it's really simple, but to me, it's the heart of change work.
Mm.
If someone passed a hypnotic law that says, right, from this moment on, you can have one technique, I'm going to pick collapse anchors, because it's just so useful. I can do it conversationally. I can do it in the room. I can do it covertly. It's just such a useful thing.
There you go.
So I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that answers the question.
If not, on my website, not on my website, on my YouTube channel, Barry Neale Hypnosis on YouTube, I've got loads of videos on collapsing anchors, some free videos.
Barry Neale Hypnosis on YouTube, is it?
Barry Neale Hypnosis on YouTube.
Have you got a go-to technique that you like going to?
As I say, if there was a hypnotic law, I'd probably pick collapse anchors. But one of the downsides of anything, if you have one technique, life tends to get very boring very quickly.
Yeah.
I get very bored very quickly. So when a client comes in, I honestly have no clue about what I'm going to do until I start talking to them.
Yeah, I don't. I've
got no plan. Because if you start making a plan, you know what they say, the moment you make a plan, God starts laughing. So I will work with the client on what they give me. It was really funny. The other day, I called for volunteers because I'm putting together a new training course.
Yeah, I saw
some demo volunteers. So anyone got this, and this? And people were going, yeah, okay. And I think, right, okay, I'm going to demonstrate this technique. So I need someone for that. So I made a date on Zoom. Person comes on. They tell me their problem, and I go, oh, crap. I'm going to have to do something else now. So I have to do something else, because trying to get is, I think it's a real big mistake trying to fit the client to the technique.
Yeah.
And that's why I think, people who there's so many people in the profession who just do one thing, like these people who think that everything is age regression, that everything has a root course. And to me, that's like the old thing, if the only tool you have is a hammer, everything starts looking like a nail.
Yeah, it's quite interesting, really, when you see, and it comes back to the conversation that we were having in a group the other day, and about people continuously just asking about techniques, and what they do is they ask for the technique prior to I've got a client coming in with anxiety. What technique should I use? Well, technically, I think it's wrong. You should be asking that question. I get it that people want to be learning, but you know, I just don't get that. I think it's just coming down
a very bizarre situation. Can you imagine surgeons going on a surgical Facebook group and saying, I've got a client coming in tomorrow and they got a problem with this particular valve in their heart. Has anyone got a technique that I can use? It's very strange.
If you've got a client coming in tomorrow and you don't know what technique it is, I very much doubt that you shouldn't be learning it the afternoon before. From
someone off the internet who you don't know. It's like, you know, the reality is we're all, a lot of us have never met each other on the internet. And a lot of times people talk a really good game.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean to say they're actually any good.
No, I know. And that's one of the key things as well. That's why I always say to people, if people are going to chops off, at least put your videos up there. I stick my videos up there. You stick your videos up there to get shot. It's what we do it for.
Yeah, and if someone asks me, and I will put a video of a technique, but you know, I see people go, oh, I've got a client coming in that's got X, Y, Z tomorrow. What should I do? And somebody will chime in and go, do havening. Well, that's all very well and good, but what if you don't know havening? What are you going to do then? It's like, yeah, havening, great technique, but if you don't know it, what's the point?
Yeah. If you don't know psychology.
If they ask the person, okay, do you know XYZ technique? And the person goes, no. Okay, well, what about this technique? Oh, yeah, I know that one. Okay, here's how you apply that to that. But don't just say, use this, use that, because if they don't know it, what's the point?
For those who don't know what havening is, it's psychosensory touch, which has been around for many, many years. But then Ron and Steve Rudin came up with an idea and a concept and some science that their technique is. Anyway, go have a look at it. Yeah. Anyway, we're going in. I'm not going down that road. No, thank you very much, Claire. It was something I was wanting to see there. Right now, this is a question, mate, that. Crypto seems to be on it tonight. But on the same token, what I am going to do is stick this right underneath that. So if you haven't gone to Barry's work yet, what I would say is that Barry's got that. But then we just put this question back up again from Big Toe. Yeah. Good evening, Beata. Stop smoking question.
Okay. Well, talk about setting me up for a promotion. Because 2 weeks from now, Yeah, 2 weeks from now, I'm doing a Stop Smoking webinar. And for those of you who don't know, 25 years ago, this was my specialism. I used to see a huge amount. I'd only market to stop smokers at one point, and I would see tons of them. And I saw thousands of smokers. And 22 years ago, I formulated everything I knew about stopping smoking and put it into a 4-day training along with a marketing guy. And we put on this 4-day training. And it was very expensive. I mean, bearing in mind this is 20 odd years ago, it was £5,000 then. I haven't taught that in its full form for that period of time. However, now what I do is on one of these webinars, I take the key principles of that and teach in this thing. And it's a lot more involved than just collapsing anchors. Stopping smoking is one of those things. It's, you know, years ago, they asked this famous bank robber in America, why do you rob banks? And he said, because that's where the money is. Well, stop smoking and weight loss is where the money is in hypnotherapy. You know, if you're going to target market, that's a great place to go. So a good hypnotist should be able to help someone stop smoking.
Yeah.
And it's a lot more than just reading a script to them.
Oh, and this is the thing as well. I mean, there's some videos on my YouTube channel, but I am pointing you towards Barry's class as well. But there's some videos on my YouTube channel. There's videos on there where I've done it in 45 seconds. It's not actually been as in a long-term strategy. That 45-second video, I think it lasts about 3 minutes. That video, but the change is instantaneous. Yeah. Same as the 7-minute one. That one just went bonkers. That one, but the stop smoking in 7 minutes or 6 minutes. That was fun. But when I'm working with smokers, I have to say, I know I can stop people. I can bring somebody in here and stop them. However, responsibility. What most people aren't doing when they're working with a client is give the client the responsibility. Most newbies and therapists seem to take responsibility if a client doesn't change, right? Now, sometimes it may well be the therapist. I get that, right? The setting wasn't right, the personality wasn't right, all of those type of things. But most of you do not give responsibility to your client. So now what I do is I now get my client to whittle their cigarettes down for a week, 2 weeks prior to them coming to me. And just what that does is it gives them responsibility coming through. Now, at the end of the day, the only reason I've given that time frame of 2 weeks, technically, is not because I wouldn't do the session one off and let them bring them in. But I find the efficacy goes up by giving them responsibility before they turn up of slowing it down, and then afterwards giving them the techniques and the ideas. That's when your failure rate goes down on smoking, when you give the responsibility back to the person. Because if you don't, they'll think it's your fault and they'll blame you. Like most of you do not give your clients homework, not even a simple bilateral stimulation, because then what you've got then is recourse. You have recourse. And what happens then is that the client goes, well, I went home and I started smoking again. All right, then. How did you get on with the homework I gave you? Well, I didn't do it. Well, it's not my fucking problem then, is it?
Yeah. Yeah. One of the big studies that was done years and years ago on stopping smoking by someone called von Dederoth. He would do a 3-session. First session, he would just educate them about smoking and whatever, and he would do a hypnosis thing, but then say, okay, you're not to smoke within 30 minutes of getting up after any meal for the next week. Second session, they would come in, he would do another bit, right, you're not to smoke for 1 hour after you get up and 1 after each meal. If they didn't comply with it, he wouldn't do the third session. Right? By the time we get to the third session, he's broken a lot of that. They've done half the work for it. Now it's like, boom, easy, because he's given them that framework. So that, what Karl's saying there is getting them to, the other thing I'll say to them is, you can't smoke on the day of the session. You come in, if I see you walking across from your car with a cigarette, I'm sending you home.
Yeah, massively, yeah.
Because here's the thing, if you tell them not to smoke on that day and they smoke on that day, what makes you think that they're going to accept any one of your suggestions? Because they haven't accepted the first one.
No, they're not taking responsibility for their own actions. They're hoping that somebody else will do it. And the other key thing as well is that most of you are not checking for threshold. You're not checking that the person is ready to receive or ready to do. They're not ready. So one of the other things as well is when people turn up and they go, oh, my wife's paying for this, my girlfriend's paying for it, my husband's paying for it, my boyfriend's paying for it, my mum's paying for it. There's no skin in the game. There's nothing in it. And I always teach this as well. I learned this during police interviews as well. And I said it on this channel before. You can tell if a person's at threshold for any change work within about 3 seconds, within 3 seconds. All you have to do is a simple thing. You just have to sit there, look at them, like I used to do in interviews or anything like that, look away, disassociate, come away, and then go, do you really want to make this change? In that 3 seconds after I've just done that, literally just looking away, doing something else, looking at them, going, do you really want this change? You will get the instant response of if they're at threshold. If they go, they're not at threshold, they're not ready. If they go, right, I'm ready, I'm good to go, that straight away, if they pause longer than that, they're not at fucking threshold. And it's the same as with an interview technique as well. You sit there and pause and pounce. Just sit there and just go, did you do it? And you can tell straight off. You can tell. And that's exactly what I do with smokers as well.
Yeah, the first part of my pre-talk is because there's a big assumption that the person who comes in, and even if you're charging them, I don't know, 300, 500, 600, £1,000 for a session, there's an assumption that if they're paying that amount of money that they're motivated to stop. Well, here's the deal. They're not motivated enough. How do we know they're not motivated enough? Because they're still bloody smoking.
Yeah.
Because if they were motivated enough to stop smoking, they wouldn't be in your session. Yeah. So you have to crank up that motivation. So I'll get them to really think about the consequences of continuous smoke. What's it cost you? How much are you spending on cigarettes? How much does that cost you? What's that cost you in the way of your life? What's that cost you in the way of your fitness? If you carry on a year from now, where will your life be? And most of the clients I get in for smoking, and for weight loss for that matter, they're in tears in this point. I want them in pain. They have to be like, I must stop, and I must stop now.
Yeah.
And this doesn't just apply to smoking and weight loss. I have anxiety clients come in and I say, okay, so we've done a little bit of a pre-talk, and I go, okay, so if I have a magic button on this desk here, if I press this magic button, all your anxiety disappears. Do you want me to press this button? And most people go, oh, yes, of course. And I go, yeah, but if I press that button, that means you got to go to work. You got to do all these things. You know, you got to face your father. You got to do all those things.
Yeah.
And they go, oh, no. So people aren't as motivated as you think just because they turn up for a session.
No. And the other thing, interestingly, that one of a good friend now, about stop smoking is that what it can do, and I've spoke to Barry about this before, is about underlying issues as well. I stopped somebody smoking who was 60 plus a day for God knows how many years, 30, 40 odd years, I think Alan was. And then he ended up in intensive care. And I actually thought it was my technique. I've told you about this before, haven't I, Barry? And I actually thought it was me. I thought, I've stopped him smoking too quickly. And he was at threshold because he had COPD, or he thought he had COPD. So anyway, he went into intensive care. His family were amazing with me. I'm sitting there thinking, fuck, my career's over. And then I didn't see him for about a year. And then I kept telling this story about, slow it down. And then I spoke to him and he said, no. He said the smoking was actually covering up one of his valves from when he was born, hadn't been working properly. So he'd had a cough for most of his life, and the cough was due to a valve not working properly. And stopping him smoking, actually, not just the nicotine going in, but it did save his life because they did a heart transplant on him as well. So yeah, there you go. So little things like that. But even still, he needed it because he thought he had they diagnosed him with COPD, and he thought he was dying.
Yeah, so motivation, we a lot of times people aren't motivated enough to change, and that's why they're still doing it. Yeah.
Let's have a look what Beata's got. When you were new to this line of work, did you feel that you wanted to have a technique? Your confidence comes from practice and knowledge. Well, I think you're always chasing around. I think you're always fumbling around. I think the key thing about it is that I know from when I first started out is that I actually stayed on track with just what if anyone knows him, what Jonathan Chase taught me, because I'd been to a training company called Chrysalis in England. And
stop swearing.
I know, shitless. And I've been with Chrysalis, who for 11 months taught me absolutely the square root of fucking nothing. And when I went to John, he taught me some techniques, and I actually just stayed on track with them. And I was actually quite confident and just doing it that way. And then I migrated off, like most of us do. We go off and find things, but like most techniques, don't become an overnight guru in it just because you've done a weekend course. So that's my top tip for that.
The problem with that, and I understand why you're saying that, but you're going to have clients that don't fit the technique.
Yeah.
And then what do you do? What you need to do is to understand how people are creating their problems, in what context they're happening, and then what they need. If you have the understanding of what you're doing, then the technique is just something to dress it up in.
It's secondary.
And then you can adjust it. But I guarantee you that if let's say I created the perfect technique and gave you 6 steps and said, right, just do this with every client, it might work for a lot of people. And then you're going to get a client and they're going to look at you blankly and go, no, nothing. And then what do you do? If your only understanding is the technique, you got a problem. So I would say that, and this is why I talk about NLP as being so divorced from what it really was, because now they're just teaching a bunch of techniques. Yeah. In the early days, they taught the understanding of what you were doing, why you were doing it, what questions to ask, what information are you trying to do, so that you know what technique you can use or adapt to create the change. So you need really the understanding of what you're doing first, why you're doing it, what information the client's giving you. That to me is the better thing, is to have that information. Because otherwise you are, and I see this so often. There's several well-known techniques out there that people try to fit their clients to all the time.
Yeah.
I don't want to give the brand names out because it'll tell you what it is. But oh, it works for this, then it must work for that.
Yeah. I think the key thing about it is learning how to mishmash your stuff up. I have not got a clue some of the shit I'm ever doing. I don't know. I just fundamentally just going off on tangents. But some of you, I think some of you realize as well that most of what you do is about belief. If the client believes in what you're doing and you give the confidence out there, that's one of the key things, the confidence and the belief that you can do it. I always tell the story of the lady at Liverpool Street. Now, a good idea was never born out of a salad. So I was pissed up one night in Liverpool Street waiting for a train to come back. And I told a nurse, and I've told this story before, I told the nurse, right, that there was a meridian, an electrical line that ran through the bottom of her nose. I don't know why. I was just pissed up, and I thought it was funny to do at the time. And I showed her, and she'd been looking, look at his YouTube channel, all of this lot. And I went, yeah, have you read that? 2 weeks later, phones me up and says, I haven't had a panic attack or an anxiety attack since you taught me that rubbing on the nose. And I was sat there laughing, going, well, actually, even if you believed in meridians, that's another can of worms. But the thing is if you do believe in meridians, that's just a belief. All I did was set her up, and that's all you've got to do. It's theatrics. When you think about it, it's theatrics.
Hi, Steve. I like EFT. I think EFT is a useful thing for people to learn. I was one of the first people in the UK to be trained in EFT, and it's a great technique. However, the skill is in knowing what to tap on.
Yeah.
That's the thing. There's the old tale of the ship's boiler that goes wrong. And they call in the engineer, and he goes all over the place, and he's with a hammer, and he's looking around, and eventually goes and taps. And suddenly it all bursts into life.
Yeah.
And a week or so later, he sends the bill in, and the bill's like $10,000. And I go, $10,000? He just tapped it with a bloody hammer. Send that back. I want an itemized bill. So the bloke sends the bill back, and it says, for tapping the pipe, $1. For knowing where to tap, $9,999.
Yeah.
That's the effect. Like, it's just going, oh, my anxiety. No, it ain't gonna work. You have to know where to tap. And that again.
I just think that's affirmations. I still think emotional freedom techniques is merely affirmations.
Yeah, what people forget is that Gary Craig was an NLP master practitioner, and if you watch Gary Craig do, certainly in the early days, doing EFT, he was using the meta model to find out exactly where and when to tap. And that's where the skill comes in. It's not the technique; it's knowing what you're doing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Let's have a look at here. Hello, darling. Hope you're well. Hope you're fine. I keep liking your videos, by the way. You're doing really well out there. Yes, my first certification gave me an Elman induction, which was just belief. That's theatrics. All the Elman induction is just theatrics. And before anyone goes fucking toddling off, I'm very good friends with Larry and Cheryl and Beryl and all of the others. But that was theatrics. And the Elman induction is just the same. It's just theatrics. It's all it is, just belief. That's all it is. The Elman induction, or their own 30 minutes induction with 3 or 4 scripts. And I had no idea. Yeah, that's the type of training that's out there. Do you know what I mean? And that's really unscrupulous. We were talking about this in the group the other day about unscrupulous trainers doing this shit. And what happens is that I'm passionate about this. Barry's passionate about it. But yeah, we look like arseholes, and we might look like we're, just running our little egos around. It's not. It's because we're sick and tired of poor bastards, right? Spending their money and leaving the profession because they were taught or poorly equipped at the very beginning, and that's why we always sit there and say, if you taught hypnosis properly in the first place, you wouldn't have the high attrition that you've got now of hypnotherapists coming into this profession and buggering off. Now, I do get it, because some of my students do this. They go off and go get pregnant. They go off and they go back to a daytime job that they wanted to do or whatever. That's fine. But if you teach people properly, on the course, then it's up to them what they do with their career afterwards.
Yeah, and you say, like, obviously the Elm induction is theatrics. I would argue that all inductions are theatrics.
Oh, they are. That's why we don't bother them anymore. We've had
it's
discussion before. It's
just a ritual that the hypnotist thinks they need and the client thinks they need.
Yeah, exactly.
And
that's why on that, I don't know if you've seen the EDIP video I did, explain, demonstrate, imitate, and perform, where I get people to explain hypnosis. It's all theatre. It's bullshit. Yeah. All it is. It's prestige. Yeah. It's the same as a mentalist. You build up. He doesn't just grab a set of cards and go da-da, or here's a rabbit. They build it up. They build it up. They build it up. They build it up. Bang! Then they present it, and that's exactly what you're doing in hypnosis. That's why. And
this is what I get a little bit uptight with people who still cling on to the belief that hypnosis is some weird altered state of consciousness, or it's a deep state of relaxation.
Delta waves.
Because it's just not the case. And when you stop and think about it, it can't be, because the so-called deep trance phenomena, they can all be had in the normal waking state, right? It's called deep trance phenomena, like catalepsy, number block, amnesia, glove anesthesia, all those things. You can do them in a normal waking state.
Yeah, you can.
So what's that got to do with deep states? But the most important, to me, the big, like, wow, years ago I heard this story. There was, for those of you who've been in the profession many, many years, there was a woman in the 70s who used to write self-help books called Ursula Markham. And her husband used to be a stage hypnotist back in the 40s and 50s, called the Great Mark Hosey, I think it was, something like that.
Yeah, I know which one. Yeah, that's it.
And this was long before the sort of days where everyone had TVs and things like that. And certainly in Africa, they didn't have things like this. And he went off to Africa to do some tour out there. And he went into some theater where people had no concept of hypnosis whatsoever. They had never heard of hypnosis at all, but they were invited in to see this guy. So he was going to do a stage hypnosis show. So he now calls for volunteers. People come up on stage. He does his normal suggestibility tests and things like this. Nothing happens. He's a little bit like, what the hell's going on here? He then tries to do an induction. Nothing happens. So he thinks, shit, what am I going to do? So he sends those people down. He then brings some people on who are a part of his entourage, like the people who arranged this tour for him, and use them as the demo subjects. Now, all of a sudden, the book and balloon, hands going up, closing eyes, zonking off, people are the audience are going, holy shit! Oh my God, this guy's so powerful, right? He then gets those people out of the audience and suddenly they can be hypnotized. So tell me, if hypnosis is an altered state of consciousness, knowing or having any belief in hypnosis should have no effect at all. It was purely the belief and expectancy. Once they witnessed hypnosis, they knew what it was, they'd seen the power of it, and they got the social proof. It's like, oh,
yeah,
they learned what to do. And that's what happened. Because like years ago when Paul McKenna used to do his stage shows and then was on TV, there was like examples where he'd go into like Sainsbury's and hypnotize the checkout girl, that every time she run a tin of beans over the thing and it went bing, she would have like a little fruity sensation. That would not have worked if you or I went in there. It worked because it was Paul McKenna and a TV crew.
Yeah, exactly. The same as the Greyhound one, mate. When they did the Greyhound, that was fun. She came out and even said that she was told to do it prior to doing it because she's been told what to do.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, they're filming on a licensed premises.
Brown, sorry, not Paul McKenna.
Yeah, they're filming on a licensed premises, right? You have to get permission.
Yeah,
licensed premises, got to have permission to film on there. So everybody at Walthamstow Dog Track knew what was going on there. He'd been there all day, calling for volunteers, set it all up beforehand.
Yeah, it's all a setup.
I mean, Darren Brown tells you in some of his shows that it's all set up beforehand.
Yeah.
On one of his shows, he does a thing where he throws a dice and rolls six consecutive sixes, one after another. And it's all on one take of film. So he throws a six, picks the dice up, throws a six, does it again. And everyone's like, wow. And then he explains what he did. He spent about 3 days in front of that camera, constantly throwing the dice. And due to the law of averages, at some point, they're going to get one consecutive frame where he throws six. So a lot of what happens there is behind the scenes.
Yeah.
It's all belief and expectancy.
When I did a TV show up in Durham called Secrets of the Brain, and a few people came up with me to do that. They said, "Can you bring 3-4 people with you?" I said, "Why is that?" I said, "Oh, just for your entourage." And I went, "Oh," and so I went up there and I did the TV show. And they said, "Well, what we want you to do is we want your crew to go out first, prep them, then you walk up and you go do it for the street hypnosis." And I went, "No, I'll just go up and go do it." And they were like, "No, do you not send a team up first?" And they'd worked with several big celebrities before and gone, "Oh, they send a team out first." And I went, "Do I shit?" So we sent my lot down the pub, the crew that were with me, and they all went down the pub. They all buggered off. And I walked around the streets of Durham, literally just doing street hypnosis myself, because that was what I was doing. I didn't do it that way.
But it was the word hypnosis that got them, wasn't it?
It's like Darren Brown, he says there's no hypnosis in this show. But it's not just
Just mentioned it.
And then when you look at the background, it's all swirling around, it's all focused, it's all part of that ambience, it's all part of that theatre, it's all part of that, and you're all just being fucking dragged in, and nobody realizes. He goes, "We're not going to use hypnosis today. There is no hypnosis going to be used. No hypnosis whatsoever is going to be used." Well, guess what? Anyway, Jesus Christ, you've opened up. I saw this. I was watching this while you were talking. I was like, "Oh, I've got to bang this one up."
Yeah.
Come on, Barry. Let's discuss somnambulism and somnambulistic.
So again, the hypnosis is in an altered state of consciousness, and as a result, there's no depths to hypnosis. So what you have is depths of relaxation. So you can suggest, when I count from 5 down to 1, you're going to go 10 times deeper relaxed. So you're suggesting relaxation. That relaxation is not hypnosis. The response to the suggestion to relax is the hypnosis. So this idea of so-called somnambulism is just a made-up term that Ellman came up with, and it's completely meaningless.
Just being sleepwalker. Yeah,
that's what it really means. Yeah. And so it really, the idea of depth of hypnosis is a misnomer. What you do have is increased belief and expectancy. So here's how I think about it. A person has a certain amount of belief one way or another about hypnosis. So then what you do is you get them to use their imagination and imagine something. So for example, the heavy light arm, book the balloon test, right? So you get them, put their hands up in front, book the balloon test. Okay, now what you do is close your eyes and imagine a big, heavy, leather-bound dictionary on one hand and 6 helium balloons tied around the other hand. That's it. Feel the hand getting heavier, lighter, heavier. You're getting them to use their imagination. What happens is they forget that they're using their imagination, and that then causes a change in their physiology. So the arm feels a little bit heavier, the other one feels a little bit lighter, and most people will feel like tiredness in their shoulder with the heavy book. And that's giving them an experience. It's like, oh, that's weird.
Yeah.
That experience enhances the belief. You now give them something else to imagine. And it just keeps going around on this. It's increased responsiveness to suggestion.
Yeah.
Not depth of hypnosis. That's not to say you can't create altered states with hypnosis. You can. And it's not to say you can't create very deep states of relaxation with hypnosis. You can. But the hypnosis bit is the responding to suggestion and using their imagination. And this is the thing, from the non-state theorists, going back to T.X. Barber and Chavez and Spanos and Irving Kirsch and whatever, they all say that hypnosis is a suspension of disbelief and believed in imaginings. Now that makes perfect sense to me, because that's exactly how people create their problems.
Yep.
They imagine shit. It creates a bad feeling in them, but they forget that they're imagining it. You know, I have a guy a little while ago who was getting married in a couple of months' time. And he's sitting in my chair talking to me. And I said, what's running through your mind when you think about giving this speech? And he goes, oh my God, you know, my heart's pounding. I'm terrified. I'm shaking. My mouth's going dry. I imagine standing up, looking at all these people judging me with big bug eyes. And as he's telling me this, he's starting to go into this anxious state. And I go, hang on a minute. Whoa. You do realize you're just sitting in my office, don't you? You're not at your wedding. He's like, yeah. What had happened was he forgot he was imagining. Yeah. Because he forgot he was imagining, it was causing this change in his physiology, which was giving him this experience. Yeah. So people's problems are created through this same process. So hypnosis and problems are pretty much using the same mechanisms. Yeah.
Guys, we're going to have to start wrapping it up in a present moment in time. But on the same token, is that how you explain to your clients, Barry?
Yeah, I mean, I explain hypnosis to them, saying that it's not like you see it on the TV, that they're not going to fall asleep, float around the room, become a zombie, that then they're going to be aware of everything. They'll hear the sounds in the room, the sound of my voice. They'll absolutely remember everything. And amongst those thoughts might be that I don't know whether I'm hypnotized or whether I'm just relaxed. I say, keep an open mind, follow on with suggestions, find yourself agreeing with them. Then at the end of the session, we'll talk about it logically then. The other thing is, you know, you can't be made to do what you don't want to do. If I could make you do what you don't want to do, or people do what they don't want to do, I'd be off down Barclays with a big suitcase. Yeah. So you have to want to make these changes. You are here because you want to stop, right? Yeah. Because I can't make you do what you don't want to do.
Exactly.
So that's pretty much how I explain hypnosis, that they're just going to feel like they're sitting there with their eyes closed. And I explain to them it's active. I want you following on with suggestions. If I ask you to imagine a juicy white lemon in your hand, I want you to imagine a juicy white lemon in your hand. You know, so it has to be active, not passive.
Yeah.
Again, the big mistake of these script people, they just simply do a PMR. The person can wander off, they're thinking about their shopping trip to Sainsbury's, and you're going to magically bypass the critical faculty of the conscious mind and focus at the unconscious. That's not how it works. It really isn't. They have to be actively involved.
There's no such thing as a critical faculty anyway, so who gives a monkeys? There's no such thing as the subconscious, unconscious. There's no such thing as a CCF either. They're just models. Get it in your big fat coconuts. These things don't exist. They just put that to make things fucking happen.
So many people talking about the unconscious mind as if it's a separate homunculus, that there's a little man in there or little woman that is controlling things. Yeah. Well, if that was the case, how far does that go? Is there a little man inside the unconscious mind that's controlling the unconscious mind? Oh, yeah, that's the superconscious.
Yeah.
How long does it go? How far do you go back? Is it a little man within a little man, a little man within a little man within a little man? It's nonsense. There's non-conscious processes or out-of-conscious processes, but it's a useful metaphor, but it's a metaphor.
That's all it is, just a metaphor. We're going to do the one, Aaron. Oh, we don't need that, but on the same token, money doesn't get you anywhere. With that picture, it might do, but on the same token, and money does get you a jet ski, and you don't see unhappy people on jet skis. So go poke it. Let's just do us a favour. Block that user. Yeah, there you go. You can go. I don't need that user. There was the subconscious at night time when you're sleeping. Is it working? I think I just saw that question a minute ago. I can't find it. Some memory listen. Oh, there was a question there a minute ago. What's your thoughts on the subconscious? Thoughts on the subconscious is always awake even during sleep.
Yeah, more nonsense, I'm afraid.
There we go.
It's just nonsense. The idea that yes, you've got an autonomic nervous system that's beating your heart and things like that. But the idea that there's some subconscious that's always there, that's always alert, and it doesn't matter if a person falls asleep, but it still works. It's just nonsense.
Yeah,
it doesn't work like that. If that was the case, what about all these people who get burgled at night, and the burglar comes into their bedroom and takes all the jewelry off the nightstand? Where's their unconscious mind then?
Yeah.
Sorry, it's just nonsense. Sleep is for sleeping.
There's no such thing as a critical factor. There's no such thing. I'll send you some videos. All right, I'll send you some videos because we are running out of time.
I'm just getting them to use their imagination. I just want them to imagine things, and that's why the lemon test is such a good thing to do.
Yeah,
right? It's such a good thing because they get straight away. If they imagine a lemon, it causes saliva in their mouth. and there's no lemon.
Yeah.
You know?
There's a video that it's on my YouTube channel called Never Fail a Hypnosis Induction Again. Go watch that, right? Go watch that. It's called Never Fail a Hypnosis Induction Again. It's on lives. It's on my live streams. Go look in there, and that will answer most of those questions. Read that, because we are running out of time. All right, folks. Where am I with the banners? Right, there we go. There, Barry. Right, so there's Barry's work there. If you want to go work with Barry, please contact Barry directly. Get him via his website and all of those type of things. And go to his YouTube channel. Go subscribe. Don't forget, folks. Please like and share if you find that somebody may well benefit from it. It's been a pleasure, Barry, seeing you again. We'll have a chat during the week, or we'll have a chat offline in a minute. But it's been a pleasure as ever. We'll bring Barry on again when he finally buys a round of drinks. Anyway, but that's a story. I'm not worried about that. But anyway, the key thing about that, folks, is I hope you've enjoyed it tonight. If you've enjoyed it, my name's Karl Smith, and that's Barry Neale. If you haven't enjoyed it, our names are Darren Brown and Paul McKenna. So there we go from there. Folks, it's been a pleasure. I hope you're well. Hope you're fine. Hope your family's well. And don't forget, folks, see you next week. And don't forget to go out there and go practice. And when you finish practicing, you're damn fucking right. Go practice some more. My friends, be safe out there. For myself and Barry, take care, my friends. And go out there and do it. Bye-bye, friends. Bye-bye.